This is the Your Sports Resource Podcast, where each week you'll learn actionable strategies that you can implement so the operations of your club support your coaching staff and the direction of your organization. We are committed to excellence in youth sports leadership. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to the Your Sports Resource Podcast. My name is Renata Porter, and today I'm very excited to have Mike Koleber back on with us today. He's going to share with us some insights about starting your own club or starting your own business, and I think it's going to be a fascinating show. So before we get started, I just wanted to do a quick, brief intro on Mike. Most of you know that he and his lovely wife, Tracy, have started or have their own club down in Austin, Texas called Nitro. Now, Mike spent a couple years in the late 90s with Swim Atlanta and moved to the Austin, Texas area, began coaching part-time with a small club team, was named head coach 2 years later, and began to grow the program from 70 kids and one 6-lane outdoor rented pool to 3 years later, 370 kids, 3 rented pools, and an expanding coaching staff. So Mike broke away from the board run program, and then Nitro Swimming was born. He and his wife Tracy risked everything with 2 young children and began work on building their own indoor 50-meter facility. June of 2007, they opened their first coach-owned 50-meter indoor center. 4 years later, they did it again, and now they are closing on an indoor 50-meter facility number 3. Today, Nitro Swimming, is that number 3 or 4? There we go. Okay.
It's 3.
Nitro Swimming has approximately 2,000 USA registered swimmers and teach over 3,800 kids a week through the Nitro Swim School. So what an amazing story. For those of you who have already heard it, I'm sure you enjoy it the second time as much as I did. Welcome, Mike. We really appreciate having you on the show.
My pleasure. I'm always happy to help.
All right. So when we last talked on the podcast, we touched on a few issues regarding, parent board mode and, but the fact that the reason why that's probably the most popular is because, there's a whole lot of things revolving around starting your own business. But the biggest one is fear of stepping out on their own because they don't, or they may not have the necessary business acumen to run the business. But before we get into all that, what I'd really like to go over is from your perspective, because, you've been doing this for a while now, I'd like to really share what are the positives and the negatives to running your own organization? Because I know a lot of people who are probably looking to start their own business is just because they are not in a great situation with parent-run board, and they're just looking to run. And I think it would behoove us to go over, what are the good things and what are the bad things that you need to consider while making this decision.
Well, happy to talk about all this stuff. It is fascinating, and there are pros and cons, but I think it really comes down to, the tolerance of risk that the coach has internally, what they're kind of made of, right? What are their insides like? And if you were like me growing up, mom and dad always said, get a good job. They've got benefits, get security. The security was always then working for somebody else. It used to be that way. And I think the pendulum has swung so much the other direction where, at least for me in my standpoint, working for the board run program was so not stable and was so much more risky. And here's why. And I said before, I think on the previous podcast of ours, that most boards start out, I believe, with good intentions. I think most board members, hey, I'm going to help my son's swim team. Hey, I'm going to help my daughter's swim team. I've got 3 kids swimming. Let me see how I can help. Right. And so I think in the beginning, they do have the willingness to just help. But all it takes is one. It just takes one board member who's sideways with you, and they get another
Yeah.
person, and they can politic, and they get somebody else. The next thing you know, and we talked before about how the a board run program is hard. It's really difficult unless that head coach is handpicking those board members, right? You could put your own people
Yeah.
in there, so to speak, to keep the ship running a certain direction. And you know the compass, you've got the compass set and it goes. When you're switching board members every year and a half, 2 years, 3 years, and the whole complexion of the board can change. And you might not have all friends and all supporters and all allies of Coach Renata. They might have it in for you. And now
Yeah.
they've got that seat in the board, and they're gonna make your life miserable. They're gonna try to run you out. And that happens a lot. And so, from a stability standpoint, we used to be, hey, it's a board run program. We're stable. We've been here 50 years. The club might be stable. The head coach or the assistant coach or the part, those coaching positions might not be so stable or might not be so happy. And so,
Right.
we were at the point with the young, my son Cal was born in 2000 and Kembry came along in 2004. And I was at that point where, gosh, it's more risky. My point was, what's more risky now? Who am I gonna put the eggs? Whose basket am I gonna put my eggs in? Is it gonna be for a board who
Hmm.
I don't know they're even gonna be there 2 or 3 years from now, or is it gonna be in my basket? And how much confidence does the coach have in their own abilities to connect with kids? And if you're growing a team and you've got it going on, Renata, I'm gonna tell you, coach, go secure water somewhere. Go secure water. I'm not good at paperwork. I'm not good at admin work. Most coaches honestly aren't.
Right.
Balance sheets to me, I know parentheses are bad. I know non parentheses are good. That's about the extent of my balance sheet knowledge. But surround yourself and at least pick one or two people. It doesn't have to be your wife or your husband or your significant other. It could be just a trusted advisor. A trusted advisor is going to
Hmm.
who believes in what you're doing, and it might even be a parent from one of your swimmers. It could be a parent because sometimes there's good. I mean, there's a lot of great parents. I love our parents on our program,
Yeah.
but I don't
Yeah.
have to. I don't report to them. Indirectly, I do,
Right.
kind of, because they're paying the bill. They write the checks every month, right? But
Well, they're your customer, but they're not your
right,
member, right?
they're not my boss. Right, they're not my
Right.
boss. So that's a long way to go about that answer. I think that question that you asked, but from
Hmm.
pros and cons, pros on the surface, stability. Cons, instability, I believe. So that's,
Yeah.
that's kind of a unique answer, I suppose.
Yeah. Okay. And like, listen, just to play devil's advocate, there are a lot of swim clubs that do really well under coach or sorry, under parent run boards. It typically ends up being those larger organizations, though, where the board can hire staff to do the day to day work and they're not in the day to day. They're more in that strategic leadership function, because I find that more parents tend to get involved and have their own personal agendas when they have to be working in that day to day because that's the state that the club is in. But usually once they get at it and they get more higher level, it runs a little bit easier because you have people who are actually running the day to day business and you have board members who aren't interfering.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And that there
Yeah.
are polished, accomplished boards out there that have their
Yeah.
stuff together. They know how to run a good program, and they also know
Yeah.
how to keep their coaches happy. There are many that
Right.
do not.
I agree. There's obviously a lot more smaller organizations, right? And that's where the problems arise. And listen, I don't know, again, I agree with you. I think it depends on the individual. I don't know that I have a grasp on which way is actually the right way or the best way. I think it does come down to for a coach when they're trying to figure out what they want to do, what is the right way or the best way for you? And if you feel like running a business and you feel like just like anybody else who's starting any kind of business, that you feel confident enough to find the right people to support you in that, I think you should go for it. I think that, just
If the
secure the
bug
water and you can find the people to support you.
if the bug's biting you every day, man, I want my own. I want to do my own. Then go for it, and start taking those steps. But another I guess con or a disadvantage of running your own show is you're running your own show. Everything stops with you.
Yeah.
Everything comes to you.
Right.
There's a pump that goes down. It's no longer a board issue to fix anything. It's your issue to fix, and that's good and that's bad. If you go to health clubs around the country, you'll see a machine that's a little sign on that says, hey, do not use, under repair or whatever. Excuse our, it's gonna get fixed soon. Well, you go in there 3 weeks
Yeah.
later, and there's still the same sign on the machine that says still not fixed. We're under repair, whatever. When you're running
Right.
your own program, you got about a half a day to fix whatever gets broken, and or you're dead in the water. And so
Right.
there's a lot more pressure. You feel a lot more pressure. But again, if you're kind of built for it and you don't mind that not everything's going to be perfect every day, and it everything outweighs each other. Every decision you make has a cost. Every opportunity has a
Mm-hmm.
cost, right? Everything has a cost. And so if the joy of owning your own water, creating your own schedule, calling your own shots, paying you and your staff what you believe that you're worth to be paid, and still able to pay your bills and put money away and everything else and build for the future. If you want to put that in your own cart and push the cart, man, go for it. If you'd rather not, and you prefer, you've got a good organization with a good board. And by the way, there are big programs that are still kind of messed up that turn
Mm.
coaches all the time, that are board programs. They're out there too. But if you're in a good situation, you want to rock that apple cart, and you've got two small kids at home, or you've got whatever, and you're good enough and you're happy, and you just love being on deck because you just love the sound of a good kick set, and
Yeah.
you love taking kids through those season plans and making kids better every single day, and that everything's good, then keep doing what you're doing. You found your vocation, and I
Right.
love that too.
Okay. I mean, all of that was great advice, because my next question was going to be, how does someone go through that self-evaluation process of, is this the right thing for me or is it not? And you've actually just added a lot of a lot of things to ask yourself. But is there anything else, like for you personally? Was it just that you knew and you were driven to do your own thing and then you just made the leap? Because there's people like me, I'm like that, right? I'm a be damned I think it through, but be damned the consequences. I believe in myself enough. I'm just going to go for it. But, I know that we are not like a lot of people. So are there things that any advice you could offer as far as going through at least that evaluation process to understand if this is the right thing for that individual?
Yeah, for me, it's funny. It's when I interview potential coaches, one of the questions I ask is, all right, what are you running from, and what do you want to run to? What are you running? Seriously, I asked it straight up. What are you running from, or what do you want to? What are you,
Right.
or are you running to something? And for me, it wasn't the same as you, Renata. You believe in yourself and could do it. I felt pretty good about being able to do it, but for me, it was more
Yeah.
the pain. It was more pain points. It were the pain points, and I had a board. The board and I we were growing apart. We were really growing
Mm.
apart, and my vision was not their vision, and it became more and more evident. And having the the two small children, to me, what really drove me, saying, 20
Yeah.
years from now, what do I want to be doing? Where do I want to be? Where do I see this? I'm not going to put my kids' future and my future and my wife's future in the hands of a board. I felt that strongly about it. And having pools that we were renting season to season, at any moment, the rug can get pulled out from under a swim program and you lose your
Yeah.
pool. They either close it, or there's budget issues, or they cut your hours, or I'm sorry, you can't use it this next weekend because we've got such and such coming in, whatever it is. And that was
Yeah.
another reason I didn't want to continue to feel like I was a gypsy, moving, trying to find any space we could do. So for us, it were the pain points. I want to stop the pain. And the only
Right.
way that I knew how to do it and continue to coach was build my own, get my own program, own my water. And that's what
Right.
really drove me. So it wasn't confidence, I can do this. It was, I hate what I'm experiencing. And so
Yeah.
it was more and more, I'm being serious. It was more and more of those days of me not looking forward to those board meetings, wondering what they're going to do to make it tough, make my job tougher for me to try to do what I was doing, growing a program, making kids faster. Guys, get out of my way. Get out of my
Yeah.
way. Let me work with
There's
these
got to
kids.
be a
And so
better way.
there was. And so that's pretty
Yeah.
much what drove us more than anything.
Yeah. So, how did you get started? And then, what is your recommendation based on if you look back on how you got started? What do you recommend that people do to get started? But first, share your story if you don't mind.
Okay. When we moved out to Austin, Texas. I was a part-time hourly coach, and the head coach had turned. Another head coach came on board, parent-run program, and the direction that team was running. And I was just doing my own thing. I had an hour and a half a night, a little group called the Shark Group, and little 10 and unders, loved them. And by the end of the summer, they were getting rid of that other head coach, the next head coach, and the board said, "Hey, we're either going to close our doors because we're $30,000 in the hole. We might do a nationwide coaching search to try to resurrect the program, or we'll give you a chance to be the head coach of this program." And at that point, the
Hmm.
corporate job that I was working during the day was kind of going down. I could see it. You read the signs that the company's not doing well when you work for a company, and they were not doing well. And again, this was one little small child at home living in a 900 square foot condo, third floor, with my view of the dumpster out the balcony window. I could see the dumpster really well for the complex. I'm not, no exaggeration. So, my wife and I, we weren't killing it by any stretch of the imagination. And I said, "Tracy, I'm going to take this head coach job and I'm going to grow this program." And when I sat with the board, I said, "What is your number one issue? What's your number one problem?" "We're $30,000 in the hole." Okay. Now, I've never,
Nice.
I've never been around any swim program or any kind of sports program that you couldn't revenue yourself out of a problem, out of a financial problem. I'm a revenue guy. I'm not necessarily a cost cutting guy. I'm more about what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? Let's build. Let's grow this base and get ourselves out of this hole that we're in. And so it was beginning of August that they hired me. By middle of September, we went from 70 kids. We had about 120, 130 kids in 1 month, in 30 days. And I did it because I was doing clinics on Saturdays. I was putting flyers out to the area pools, summer pools, free clinic. Come see former NCAA All-American. Guarantee your swimmer will get faster. Well, it's free, so they're not going to get anything back, right? And so I started growing the program,
Yeah.
and we got an assistant coach, another assistant coach, another site, another site. Now we're renting 3 pools, outside pools in the city of Austin. We're starting to make a name for ourselves. We're starting to grow. And I knew we had something. I just knew we had something. But when they hired me as head coach, I said, "I'm going to build a swim center. I'm going to build a swim center." And "Oh, that's great. That's super." And the name of the team was actually on the blueprints. The first set of blueprints that came back from the architect was the former team that I was coaching, because that was my plan, to take this team into an indoor 50-meter pool. And as long as I could break away from the
Hmm.
board, I'm still going to call it that team, because they had parkas, they had the logo, they had swim caps. I don't want to change that. It was all good. So
Right.
that's when it started going a little more sideways. About 2 years later,
Okay.
now we're 370 kids. We are blowing and going, and it's the team's starting to rise. And I walk into a board meeting, And normally we're sitting around like a rectangle, right? This particular board meeting was a Tuesday night in April. And I walk in, and there's one chair on one side of all these tables. There's all the other chairs on the other side. That's how the room was set up.
Okay.
And I sat down, and I'm thinking, what am I getting into right here? What's going on? And so I sat down,
Mm.
and the board member starts and says, "Hey, Coach, how you doing?" "I'm doing good." And they said, "Hey, we want to talk about this new swim center you're planning. Okay, how's that coming along?" "Well, here's my partial list of investors. Here's my environmental phase 1 report. Here's the rendering. We're moving. I'm so excited. It's going to be so exciting. 50-meter indoor, and we'll be able to have the team name on the building, and we're going to be able to own this pool. I'm going to own it, but it'll be owned, coach owned, right? Team owned." And the next person says,
Yeah.
"Well, that sure is a long way to go, a long way to drive for families. How many of our kids are you going to take?" That was the question. How many of our kids are you going to take? And so at that point, I became Homer Simpson. Think, boy, think, boy, think. I'm thinking inside my head, how am I going to answer this? Because I've got a small child at home, and my wife's stay at home now, and I'm not making a lot of money as head coach of this,
Yeah.
program. And I said, I'm not going to take anybody. I said, the market will determine everything. Some folks might come, some folks might not. Could be all, might be none. I don't know. It's 13.6 miles from driveway to driveway. So all I know is when it's February, and it's 38 degrees out, and we're swimming outside with steam coming off, and we've got to put cars in the parking lot pointing their headlights so the kids can see where they're going in the water. That might be too much for certain families. They said, you know what? We want to be indoors. We'll drive 13 miles to be indoors. For others who live a block from the pool, they might say, you know what? We're just not going to swim tonight. But we're going to stay with this program. So that's where it started going wrong. And then the next thing was, this isn't sour grapes at all. I'm just telling you the truth. The next question was, well, we got to have a meeting, a special meeting, another committee called a transition committee. What's going to happen when you roll into this new center? Okay, good. And they had a meeting. I get an email 2 weeks later, and it says, number one, I am no longer able to talk about this new swim center at all until I get fully funded by the banks. That's number one. Number two, they're no longer going to
Okay.
cover my wife for insurance. Number three was my entity will be responsible for the 3 leases of this other program all the way to the end of the lease periods, and I'm going to pay all the utilities and the lease for those pools as well, regardless of when this center opens. So now, what I had already done when I left that board meeting that night was I started looking for water. And that's my advice, what I said earlier in the call today: find some water. I found a country club
Yeah.
not too far away with heat. And the general manager said, we'd love to have you. Let's make a deal. Cool. I met, talked, got a great deal. Nothing in writing. Nothing in writing. So now it's a month later, May board meeting. I sit down, once again, one chair, all the chairs. I sat down, and they said, let's talk about the email we sent. And I said, I'm going to save you a lot of time. But before I walked in that meeting, I called that manager of the country club. And I said, hey, I want to ask, do you think that deal looks pretty good still about using the pool this year? He says, yep, looks pretty good. I said, I've got nothing in writing. What do you think? He says, nope, I think we're good. I said, I've got a small child at home and a stay-at-home wife. I'm about to resign. And he said, you're good. I walked in with nothing signed with the new pool. And I sat down. I said, I'm going to save you guys a lot of time. I'm resigning. And their jaws hit the ground. And I said, certainly.
Right.
You couldn't have imagined any other result when you paint me into a corner What do you think I'm going to do? I've got a pool. I'm good to go. September 1st, I start. So now it's May, right? June, July, and August. And
Right.
we have I'll leave right now if you want, or I'll coach you the summer. But if I'm coaching through the summer, no way am I going to have a muzzle that says I can't talk about what we're building. That's insane to me. That was just insanity. So they may have a meeting. They call me back in, and they said, "We want you to finish out the summer with us too." Okay. So I stayed for the summer, finished, went off, branched off my own program at that point. So that was my own experience of
Yeah.
what happened to me. And everyone's different. Everyone, somewhat similar. Who knows? That was my experience.
Well, to start your business without a contract and to leave your one job, you can't tell me that you're not similar to me and that you back yourself, because most people wouldn't have done it until they had something in writing, right? So
Right.
you definitely backed yourself.
Yeah. Well, also, but Renata,
Okay.
the advice from a lot of leadership type folks. You know what you want to be successful? Cut out your safety nets. Do not have a plan B.
Yeah.
It's all or nothing. You're either in or you're not. I would
Yeah.
recommend it for the average person that has average tolerance. If your tolerance for risk is kind of high and you got that little adrenaline, hey, I'll show you, I can do this.
Right.
It might be for you. And who's to say
Yeah.
that you have to do all or nothing? You could still be working a job during the day. There are so many side hustles out there that you can keep, making a living while you're developing your plan to start your own program or find your own water. I don't want to scare
Right.
everybody. That's all.
And I think, yeah, and I think that's key, because not many people can do that, right? So they can't wait. They're not in a position to where they can go find water and then start September 1 with no members, right? Or just a handful of members, and then kind of limp through until you build the program. So that leads me into the next question about finances. Like, do you have any thoughts about, like, not only about securing water space, but also you yourself being able to survive with, whether it's you're just by yourself, a coach is by themselves, or if they have a family? Like you mentioned side hustle, but what are some of the other things that they can do to kind of really position themselves, I guess, other than just finding a bunch of sponsors and backers? But what are some of your strategies that you think would be good from a financial perspective?
The cost of barrier to entry to go find water that you're going to rent or lease is little, next to nothing, because you're going to pay per month, and it's usually going to be the month after, usually, or maybe even if it's a month ahead of time. If the average, I don't even sure what the average rental costs are now for an average lane of, of pool water somewhere that's heated. But let's just say it's $10 an hour. I'm
Yeah.
$10 a lane per hour. I don't know. Let's just say 10. Make the math easy. It might be a little low. That might be low, but I don't know. So you got a pool
Right.
that's 6 lanes. You're going to rent $60 an hour. That's 120 for 2 hours if you need it for 2 hours. What's 120 time? I don't have my calculator because it's on my phone right now. But 120, let's say 5 days a week, you could get a pool. Can you do the math really quick for the folks listening? So
Yeah.
120
Sorry.
bucks.
I can't do it in my head either.
Yeah, 120 bucks time. Let's just say 5 days a week. Let's just say no Saturday, no Sunday, Monday through Friday. You got 2 hours of water time. 2
So that's
hours
$600 a week.
times 4.3. Weeks
So
per
about
month.
$2,400 a month.
Okay. And
Yeah.
whatever the average tuition is, for a swim team, you can start doing some math. Now, I know most people are
Right.
aware of this already with what Nitro does, but 47% of our swim team are USA members. And you said earlier in the bio part, we have, over 2,000 USA registered swimmers. We do, but 47% of them are only swimming once or twice a week for 45 minutes.
No, okay.
47% of our team. You think Nitro is this big, huge, competitive monster of a team. It's not. 47% of our team is once or twice a week for just 45 minutes. That's it. That's all they want. But if you price swimming like they do gymnastics and volleyball and t-ball and scouts and piano lessons and everything else that's out there, and kinder care and whatever the little tots, whatever those kid programs
Yeah.
are. They're paying at least $20 an hour. At least $20 an hour. Those are $80 a month, $90 a month, $100 a
Yeah.
month for one time a week. And so now, if I can have two of those lanes, just two of those 6 lanes, with 6 kids in each lane that are once a week, they're paying $20 an hour. 6 times 20 is $120 for that one lane. The second lane is $240 now. So I've got 2 lanes of 6 kids each, and they're not going to swim for an hour. It's only 45 minutes. They're still going to pay $20. I'm not doing this to try to get people to say, oh my gosh, he's trying to break people. No, I'm pricing things that are for a market of parents that want something high quality. I'm not just going to stick a 16-year-old who twirls a stopwatch on those lanes. They're going to get a professional coach.
Yeah.
So now $240 for an hour. I'm only paying $20 for those 2 lanes. I just brought in $240. So 240 minus 20, $220. I'm netting $220 minus a coach. I can pay a coach $20 for 45 minutes. I can pay a coach $20 an hour. I can pay a coach $30 an hour. And you're still netting about $180 off of those 2 lanes in just 45 minutes. So for the coaches out there that are afraid how the math works, don't be afraid to start getting a piece of paper out and start jotting down some figures and saying, hey, what would it cost me to use a pool? What could this pool potentially bring me in from a revenue side? And I'm telling you what, you walk into any 3rd grade class out there, you said earlier, Renata, on September 1st, it's scary because you're not going to have a team, right? You just can't start up on September 1st. Well, it's possible you could. You walk into any 3rd grade class and you ask a bunch of 3rd graders, hey folks, who here likes to swim? Every hand's going to be up, right? Then it's going to say, all right, keep your hand up if you want to swim for the next 15 years of your life, every single Christmas vacation and summer and holiday breaks, twice a day, putting on a cold wetsuit for the rest. No, maybe one. But if you said, hey, once a week, and we'll teach you what the Olympians know and what the Olympians do, once a week for 45 minutes, who's interested? Now, which parent out there is interested who doesn't want to go to the weekend meets that they've heard about from everybody else saying, you got to get married to a sport. It's going to be 5-6 days a week, every day going to a pool, back and forth. No, we offer once or twice a week. Really? Interesting. We could do once a week. We want to do once a week and be part of your organization.
Yeah.
That's where the team starts. And they've got friends that they want to be with. So that's what launched us in that direction. And honestly, I told you before, I'm a lot of me is fear-based, right? I'm driving home. I was never nervous building this first facility that opened up in 2000. Never nervous before the 2007 facility opened until 2 weeks before it opened. And I stopped on the road at Crystal Falls Parkway in Cedar Park, Leander, Texas. I put my hands on my steering wheel. I pulled off. I put my head on the steering wheel and I said, oh my gosh, what am I about to get myself into? I'm going to owe over $50,000 a month for the next 20 or 25 years of my life. On the first of every month, I'm going to have to pay $50,000 a month. Oh my gosh, what do I do? And I said, how do I make the big pool more like the small pool? That's what it was. How do I make my big pool more like my small pool, which is lessons? Well, gosh, I've got 2 kids now at that point. I don't want to go anywhere with my kids more than once a week. If they were in soccer, I couldn't imagine taking my 6-year-old twice a week to soccer practice. He was 6. I couldn't imagine taking my 4-year-old more than once a week to little gym, little gym that she was doing. Once a week, awesome. Twice a week? No. 3 or 4 days a week? That's nuts. So swim programs are still in this 1970s, 1980s model, I think, that says, oh, you want to swim? Here's the group for you. Yeah, but nope, that's your group. But I don't want to. Nope, see ya. So you put a kid in a group that meets 3 times a
Yeah.
week. They want to come once. They come once. Two things are going to happen with that experience, and they're both negative. Number one, they're not coming all 3 days a week. So what are they doing? They're missing a lot, which means they're going to fall behind, which means they're going to get discouraged, which means they're going to
Right.
quit. You got to find another kid. Another one,
Yeah.
you're churning. The second bad thing that happens, every time that parent drives by your facility on a night that they're supposed to be there and they're not there, the pain point hits them. And they're reminded they're paying for something that they're not using. And those are two negative pain points that I don't
Yeah.
want them to experience. So that's part of Nitro's model. I just let you guys in the inside secret of how we're able to put together programs of, one location's got 1,050, that one's got almost 800. The other one's, we've got a satellite that we use, another 120 kids. Throughout the year, it's 2,000 kids a year that come through our program. Most kids stay for the whole
Yeah.
year. Most kids stay. So anyway.
Well, I like your approach in that, like, listen, the math is simple. Sit down and just do some backwards math, right? I get that. That's beautiful. And I also like your thought process of, like, a lot of clubs are starting to think about more of that recreational track. And then there's a lot of clubs who've been down that for a long time and really miss performance. So they're trying to come back and find the balance between the two. But what I like is your approach of, there's got to be a different way and a different opportunity that helps support the program grow and flourish while serving the community for those kids that just love the sport and they get in as a customer for you. And maybe out of that, that creates interest with them or people that they know or families that they know who do want to move into that performance track. And I think that's beautiful insight there, and that, like, the simplicity of doing your numbers and think about your customers differently than what has been traditionally thought about your customers in the past. And that is, no, you're in a 4 or 5 day week program, tough bananas. That's how it is, right?
Yeah.
And that's not to say that that's the right way or the wrong way. It's just, that's your way. That's how you do it. And so that shows other people that may want to go down this route that there are other opportunities and different ways to approach building your base.
Well, you talked earlier about, about using the pool lanes, right? And how we use the lanes. If you've got a group that's a 4 time a week group and the majority of the kids come twice a week, let's just say, and they can pick whatever night they want to go, that means that you are giving up potential lane space to a group who would really want to be there, let's say on a Thursday afternoon, who you can count on for extra revenue. And so if the concern of a coach, man, I don't want to go on my own because I'm afraid I can't make it financially. Well, you might not make it financially if you've got these groups that are this multi times a week and you're having your groups, half of them are showing up and half don't. Utilize the lane space. So, I mean, we have pool maps that we set up. It's like, looks like an algorithm, but the pool maps are all set up to max out. You want to maximize water. What's the most valuable resource as a coach who's renting a facility or owning the water, whatever, either way, what's the most valuable resource? It's the water. You've got to program the water accordingly. Program it. And if you learn that, you can make the finances work.
Okay, I have one more area that I think would be good to discuss, and that is finding those members. You brought out a good thing about visiting the school. Maybe that's what you need to do. But I think that walking that line of finding new members and not feeling like you're poaching from other teams, like, I recognize that that's a really delicate balance for integrity and your reputation. So what are your thoughts on that, and what advice can you offer people to, like, as they're trying to build their team, how can they walk that line and feel good about it?
I tell you what, I think you just have to be the best version of yourself all the time. Whether it's practices and or meets, I don't ever talk with a parent of another team, a swimmer of another team. In fact, we forbid our coaches from even doing private lessons, even if they're contacted by kids from other programs and families of other programs. it's a rule at Nitro. It's in the handbook. We do not offer private lessons to
Okay.
anybody that's registered on another USA program because number one, it's a conflict of interest. Number two, let's say you're the coach working with these kids for another team. You see them at a swim meet. Who are they going to go to? The messages can't be mixed. These kids they're impressionable. Sorry, folks, we're staying with the Nitro staff only. If you want a private lesson with one of our coaches, you're gonna have to join our program because we're not allowing our coaches to do that. That's one thing we do. Second thing is
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily looking for a high performing swimmer because it's the shiny object, right? Oh man, if we just had that guy over here, oh my gosh, if we had her over here, then she'd bring this person and they bring that person. I think it's just
Right.
you build your foundation on something that's really solid and upstanding, and you're rewarded with that down the road. And there's no short term gain that's worth it. What's the old line that says um, you don't want to gain the world and lose your soul, right? You don't ever lose your soul. Don't lose your
Right.
soul.
Right.
And really, who am I looking for? I'm still looking for those third graders who want to swim once a week. I'm not poaching those. They're not swimming anywhere. Our biggest competitor
Yeah.
is apathy, doing nothing. The kids that do nothing, the parents who do nothing, who don't
Mm-hmm.
drive their kids and take their kids place. That's a competitor of ours. It's too hard. It's just too hard to get your kid in a car and take them someplace, right? It's I won't say it's the other sports because I love athletics. If youth athletics,
Right.
if they don't choose us, man, I hope they're playing soccer. I hope they're doing gymnastics. I hope they're playing basketball. I hope they're involved with athletics. I love youth athletics. I want to get those kids who aren't involved in that type of thing yet. And so you get them for once or twice a week. Eventually, you're going to get a shining star out of the once or twice a weeks, and you start
Right.
developing them. We had, for the first time ever, we had a swimmer that started in our once a week group. I'm sorry, summer rec. 3 weeks in the summer program. Went to our once a week program. Went up the ladder. He signed for Lehigh University, and he swims for Lehigh this fall as a freshman, swimming. And he started with just
Wow.
our recreational once a week program. And we've got a bunch of kids that started our lessons program and came up through our program that went through all the way through. And Jeremy Kelly's going to
Yeah.
Texas this year. Trinity Huang is at Boston University, and they all started in our lessons pool. And they swim NCAA, and then they move on, and then hopefully they have kids and they bring their kids to us,
Yeah.
So that's where we are now with that. So it is a fine line. I'm very careful. If somebody emails me first, it's open season. You're allowed to talk to the parent. If they contact you
Yeah.
first, you're allowed to talk. If they're not talking to you, that's just such a no-no. It happens. I know it
Yeah.
happens. It happens to us a lot. It happens to us. And I've always stayed the high ground. And more often than not, they come back to our program because they didn't like what happened.
Right.
Well, you're not going to succeed if you're doing things underhandedly. You're not going to in the long run. It's going to get you.
That's right. That's right. I
So
fully believe that. And I love that you've said all that because that's good, like on the deck at meets and all that kind of stuff, like holding your ground, staying, holding on to your reputation, I think is beautiful.
for sure.
What do you recommend to go out and find um new families? Like how do you market? Especially if your budget's really tight. Like what are the things that somebody can do to go out and try to market themselves and like I don't know, do you go to career day and talk at third grade and at the elementary school? Like what are you
We
doing?
we we actually do, but we don't do it to say, hey, why don't you come swim for Nitro? We do it because water safety awareness. And we go in, we'll
Okay.
wear the Nitro stuff. And I'm wearing the polo, Nitro swimming, and I've got flyers that have the top five, buddy system, never swim alone, reach your throw before you go, know what's under that water, the surface water. You're never going to go head first, always go feet first. All those, we go into health and wellness. We get asked all the time locally.
Right.
That's something a coach could do, approach the elementary schools. Hey, I'm not going to make a pitch for my program. I'm just going to talk about water safety. And water safety is a win and you're getting a great message across. If you want to put your name and your club contact and your website underneath your little, top 5 water safety tips, whatever it is, go for it. Those kids
Yeah.
bring the stuff home to their
Yeah.
parents. That's a great way to do it. Another way is there are influencers in your community. There are moms groups, there are dads groups, there are parent groups, Facebook groups, and find some 1 or 2 people and maybe offer some free lessons to their child. And hey, in exchange for free lessons, man, I'd love to get you, if you like what I do, after 6 weeks or so, I'd love to get your shout out to me and what I'm doing with my program out to your group. Is
Yeah.
that you could, that's hustling. And yeah, it's going to cost you your time, but it's not going to cost you thousands of dollars trying to get your name out there. The
Yeah.
social media and the internet has speeded up things so quickly, how fast you can get out there to people talk, and people do talk and they chat.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the opposite is true. If it's a bad message, those travel about 10 times faster. So you've got to always make
Yeah.
sure that you're
Sure.
above board, and those are 2 good ideas. I think those 2 pretty
Yeah.
solid ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are great ways to get started. I love them. Thank you for that. All right. I have one more question. Any other, like, just thoughts, tips, considerations, whatever it is that someone who's going through this mental exercise right now that you feel like they should know or think about, contemplate before moving forward?
Renata, I don't know this about you, but you have any kids?
Yes, I have 2 adult children.
Okay. When when you found out that you were expecting, did you have all
Hmm.
the answers? No.
No, I don't
When you
think I had
came
all the
home,
answers my entire time parenting.
that's my point. We're about ready to open up our
Yeah.
3rd indoor 50 meter. I don't have it figured out. I don't have it figured out. I didn't have the first one figured out. I still don't. I don't have the second one figured out. I still don't. We've got issues every single day. And if you're a coach out there considering this, and you think you have to have all of your answers, and if this happens, I do this. And if this happens, I do this. And
Yeah.
there's a manual that says it, you'll be waiting your lifetime. And every day that you wait is another day that you won't get back. And so
Yeah.
my advice is, number 1, go easy on yourself from a critical standpoint. We are all of our own worst critics. I beat myself up. Renata, I'm
Hmm.
sure you beat yourself up. Oh my gosh, what I do, whatever. It's not going to be perfect. But if it's important enough to you to get what you want at the end, you're going to keep doing what you're doing. So Tracy and I always had a saying, we're falling, but fall forward. You're going to fall, just keep falling forward. And as you get up, you're closer. Fall again, get up, get up. And so you're going to keep moving closer. Not everything's going to be spelled out for you. You're going to have days where you feel like 10 2x4s smack you right across the side of the head. And it's not about who gets up first. It's just who just keeps getting up. So just keep getting
Yeah.
up and move yourself forward and do something every day, whatever how small it is, towards your goal of what it is that you're doing. And I'm telling you what, if it's important enough to you that you want to start off on your own and get your own program running, you're going to figure out how to do it. If it's important enough,
Yeah.
you don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
You just don't. You're not going to have the answers. I don't have all the answers. I still
Yeah.
don't. So
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. I think that's sound advice. And, there's so many people who never take the first step because they feel like they have to have it all figured out all the way to the end result.
yeah,
And
I don't.
no, that's not the same thing as setting a goal, right? It's sometimes you have to figure out the steps in order to reach your goal. But what I do feel is important is you need to understand yourself as an individual. You need to know where your value is, where your integrity is, what you will stand for and what you won't stand for. I think you need to set goals for yourself, right? But also understand that things shift and change and you have to be resilient. And like, yeah, you're going to fall down. The beauty of falling down and getting back up is you learn something, right? So I think
Right.
that understanding yourself as an individual, knowing your gaps, know where you excel, how do you fill those voids, and then know you know, what hill you're going to climb and what hills you're not before going into it, I think is key. Because if not, in those areas, I see a lot of people, you know, when I was doing regular business consulting, would just follow and chase the customer and the whims of the customer, and then go against completely their own values, their own
Yeah,
integrity.
don't do
So I
that.
think it's
Nope,
really important to know yourself before you jump
for
off the
sure.
block, so to
Yep,
speak.
you're exactly right.
Yeah. All right. Well, Mike, we really appreciate you coming on. Really, thank you. I really appreciate it, because I know it can be a touchy subject, but you can't tell me that there's not a lot of people that are out there thinking about doing their own thing. And I want to promote, you know, listen, if you've got that inkling, if you've got that desire, you should go for it, right? And know that it is okay. Things you're going to have to figure out, but there's a lot of resources. I'm sure people can write you and lean on you and your wife and make sure that, you know, ask the questions. There's nothing wrong with asking questions and getting the support. But
Here's
thank you, Mike, for coming
yeah,
on.
right now, here's one more thought for the folks out
Okay.
there, possibly, and even if you do work for a board run program, there are some boards out there that are at that point of being somewhat reluctantly serving. And they might
Mm,
be in a position, you don't know, you might have an audience. You might have an interested audience in what you might want to do. Hey, listen, I'd like to take this program over and make it, and take it on as a coach run program. You already have a long-term relationship, maybe with the pool or the pool situation, whatever that is. And you
yeah.
might have a willing ear with a board member or two. It's not something I think I would do and walk into a board meeting and say, hey, I want to make a coach run. Let's go. I think you have to approach it very tactfully,
Yeah.
and but that is a possibility, because I do know coaches that have taken over a formerly run program that used to be run by a board, and now it's
Yeah.
theirs. And that is a very viable option if you've got that kind of relationship with a solid board.
Awesome. Thanks for that. That's good. Good, good, good.
Yep.
All right, everyone. Thank you for listening. And please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast so we can reach a bigger audience and help others such as yourself. And don't forget to visit the website where you can find many tools and articles in all of our podcasts, and that is yoursportsresource.com. Finally, remember what is common sense is and always common practice. Put what you learn into action. Don't just be good at it. Thanks, everyone.